public domain horror movies. They started off by taking beloved characters and turning them into serial killers. Who remembers that movie when Winnie the Pooh kills somebody with his car? That's right, I just described one of the kills from Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Who remembers when Steamboat Willie lost his mind and started chasing teenagers with a knife? That's the plot to The Mousetrap, formerly known as Mickey's Mousetrap. The title probably changed on that movie to avoid a lawsuit from Disney, if we're being fair. Now, Popeye is getting the same treatment as Steamboat Willie in Winnie the Pooh. Popeye is being turned into a serial killer in the new movie, Popeye's Revenge, coming out in 2025. I will admit that I have watched Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, and The Mousetrap. In fact, The Mousetrap was one of my most anticipated movies of 2024. With that said, I am probably not going to watch Popeye's Revenge. In this video, I want to explore 2 reasons why I have given up on the genre of public domain horror as a whole going into 2025. Normally I have 3 reasons, but this one I think 2 reasons will suffice. The first reason I want to go into, the first reason for why I've given up on public domain horror movies is that it's really nothing more than a gimmick. Okay, the idea of taking a beloved childhood character like Winnie the Pooh and having him lose his mind and become a cannibal after Christopher Robin left, and then going out and killing people was a great idea for a first watch. It at least got people interested in what would happen if we turned Winnie the Pooh into a serial killer. Same with Steamboat Willie. What would happen if we turned Mickey Mouse into a serial killer? And now that Mickey Mouse is public domain, we can do it. And the gimmick with the Mousetrap and turning, Mickey Mouse's Steamboat Willie into a serial killer was a gigantic fuck you to the Walt Disney Corporation. And again, it did work just for a one-time viewing, because at least you got people interested. But here's the problem with movies that have gimmicks. A movie needs to have more than just a gimmick going for it in order for people to ever want to watch it again. And the comparison that I want to bring up is the filmography of the one and only William Castle. Now, I do want to stress very, very importantly that the filmography I'm going to focus on are William Castle's gimmick movies, when he worked as a producer, when he founded his own production company. So the movies I'm going to focus on are Macabre, House on Haunted Hill, The Tingler, 13 Ghosts, Homicidal, and Mr. Sardonicus. Those are the 6 William Castle movies that all had gimmicks with their release. Now, some of you might remember some of the gimmicks, but some of you might not. Macabre is actually the most famous example of how the gimmick worked too well. The gimmick actually took people out of the movie. There's only 2 things that people remember about Macabre. The first thing is at the premiere when William Castle came up out of the coffin is a very famous photograph. But the second thing that everyone remembers Macabre for is the $1,000 life insurance policy from Lords of London if anyone died of fright while watching the movie. Now, if we're being honest about that $1,000 life insurance policy, there probably was a whole lot of legalese in the contract. Like, you couldn't have like a previous medical condition, something like a heart condition where you could reasonably die from watching a horror movie, but still, that's all anyone remembers Macabre for. They don't remember 1 second of the movie. What they remember mostly is that's the movie with the $1,000 life insurance policy from Lords of London. Then you get to his second most famous movie, which was House on Haunted Hill. It is in the public domain, at least in the United States here, but it stars Vincent Price. And most people actually don't remember that House on Haunted Hill actually did release with a gimmick, and I think it's because it's been played on television so many times that the gimmick has been lost. But House on Haunted Hill is the movie that had the skeleton with the red glowing eyes that would swing down from the ceiling. But the reason why the gimmick didn't work is because you would have teenagers reportedly would be trying to knock it down off of the ceiling. But with House on Haunted Hill, that is a movie that you can watch absent the gimmick. You don't need the skeleton with red eyes to enjoy House on Haunted Hill. House on Haunted Hill is still a pretty fun movie. It's not the greatest movie ever made. It is a low-budget horror movie, but again, movies don't need to have big budgets to be good. They just need to be entertaining. And then his second most famous movie, which was The Tingler, came out the same year as House on Haunted Hill, came out in 1959. The gimmick of The Tingler was that you sitting in the audience would always feel the Tingler whenever he would come on the screen, when in reality there would be like electronic devices placed under the seats, and they would create a vibration. So every time the Tingler came on the screen, the devices were all set on a timer, and so all of the seats would buzz, so you would feel the Tingler. But if you watch the Tingler, even without the gimmick, once again, it's still a very entertaining movie, even without the gimmick. Then you get up to 13 Ghosts, the original 13 Ghosts from 1960, not the remake from the early 2000s. That one had gimmick glasses, where if you look through the red side of the glasses, you could actually see the ghost. But if you got too scared by the ghost, you could quickly flip it over, look through the blue side, and the ghost would disappear. Okay, then you have Homicidal, that came out in 1961, and Homicidal, I did have to verify what the gimmick to Homicidal was, because I did get it confused with another movie. But Homicidal's gimmick was they had what was known as the fright break. And basically just before the climax of the movie, there would be like a countdown of 45 seconds. And that was when, if you got too scared by the movie, you could exit and get a refund. Now there were ways that William Castle did prevent people from going to a second screening and getting a refund for only one of them by issuing different colored tickets. However, very few people actually went and got the refund, because not only would the countdown start, the theater lights would come up a little bit, and there would be like arrows on the floor, I think would be in like bright neon yellow tape. So everyone was going to see if you were going to wuss out and not stick around to see the climax of the movie. Basically, you had to engage in a bit of public schadenfreude in order to receive your refund. And then the final William Castle movie to have a gimmick was Mr. Sardonicus, that came out in 1961. And Mr. Sardonicus had the gimmick that the audience would vote for the ending. Either Mr. Sardonicus would suffer, or you would show Mr. Sardonicus mercy. And depending on the public vote, that would tell the projectionist which ending to play. However, looking into film history, there is no evidence that there was ever an ending shot for giving Mr. Sardonicus mercy. So in reality, it was more of a forced choice, and one that was actually very, very smart, because most horror audiences want to see the main guy usually die rather than see him get redeemed. Seeing Mr. Sardonicus get redeemed in the movie Mr. Sardonicus would have been very, very out of place if you ask most people. But still, I do want to stress, and why I'm talking about the William Castle horror, gimmick movies compared to the public domain horror movies, is that you probably don't remember the vast majority of William Castle's filmography, especially his gimmick movies. Like I said, the only two that you might know are House on Haunted Hill and The Tingler, and it has nothing to do with the fact that House on Haunted Hill has been in the public domain for decades, at least I want to stress in the United States, but it's the fact that House on Haunted Hill is an enjoyable movie even without the skeleton with glowing red eyes. And The Tingler is still an enjoyable movie even without the buzzing seats, so you quote-unquote feel the Tingler. Every other movie, if it just focused on a gimmick, it's like, okay, you got everybody in with the gimmick, but the movie was nothing more than just a gimmick. It was a theme park attraction. Let's take Winnie the Pooh and turn him into a serial killer. Let's take Mickey Mouse, Steamboat Willie, and make him a serial killer. Let's make a Bambi movie where we have Bambi, track down the hunter that killed his mother. Let's make a Popeye movie where we make him lose his fucking mind and turn him into a serial killer. It's been overplayed. And I do want to stress that it did not start with Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Most people forget about the Banana Splits movie that came out in 2019 that took, the Banana Splits, which was a children's show from the late 1960s, early 1970s, and they reimagined those characters as serial killers. Now, the Banana Splits were not in the public domain. That's why the Banana Splits movie does not fall in the genre of public domain horror movies. But still, the idea of taking like beloved children's characters and turning them into serial killers, not a new idea, but it's a gimmick that at this point has been overplayed. And that leads into my second reason why I've given up on the public domain horror movies, is that the movies look and feel extremely cheap. I believe Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey was shot on a production budget of only $50,000. Granted, it made $5 million. It made $5 million in its theatrical run. That's a great return for, you spend $50,000 making the movie and you get a $5 million box office haul. Okay, you have to split the box office take 50-50 with the theaters. That's roughly $2.5 million that the filmmakers behind Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey basically got to pocket off of a production budget of only $50,000. Again, great business sense. But Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2, I believe was produced on a budget of $1 million, but I think it made nearly identical, a near identical box office to the first Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. So the audience between sequels did not grow. Because again, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey was nothing more than a gimmick, a one-time watch. You got everybody to check it out because, okay, you're going to turn Winnie the Pooh and Eeyore into fucking serial killers. Okay, great, but is there any more to the movie? Well, not really outside of that gimmick. And I know I've gone on. I know this video has dragged on a little bit, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna end the video with this. If someone makes a movie that is only watchable one time, then they have a bad movie. I don't care about how good the cinematography or the special effects are. If the movie can only be enjoyed once and no one wants to watch it again, then the movie has failed. In my opinion, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, and The Mousetrap fall into this. The Mousetrap was a fun watch just as a gigantic fuck you to the Walt Disney Corporation. But outside of that, there is no reason to go back and rewatch The Mousetrap. Winnie the Pooh killing someone with his car is not enough reason to go back and rewatch Blood and Honey. Once you realize that the movie was made as a gimmick, and that's all it ever will be, it makes it difficult to justify rewatching it for the gimmick alone. Longevity is the name of the game. Give it a few years, and no one is going to care about Popeye's Revenge, or Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, or The Mousetrap, because they were made for one reason and one reason only. Because it was a cheap gimmick. At least William Castle made entertaining movies like House on Haunted Hill and The Tingler that can be watched without the gimmicks.